Good morning, Madro, John, Nadine, Juanito. They call me in Mexico, and I insist on using that name because I'm planning to go back to Mexico, where I was for 2 years. I want to make a note about Kundalini energy, which for some people gets very heavily associated with sexuality and various sexual practices for raising the energy, the psychic energy, the spiritual energy. But I use the term Kundalini to refer to life energy, which contains sexual energy and can be liberated by sexual arousal and sexual practices, but doesn't need to. It's all about the energy of life as it wants to course through your body. And I'm a master. I'm one of the masters of the Near East. No. But I use it. I've liberated it, and it works really well for me, and I can teach it. And I do teach it in my stress management and trauma release classes and in my mentoring program I'm going to start. But I want to tell you how I've gotten there. It hasn't been primarily through sexual practices. It's been through movement and dance, mostly. Dancing is maybe the best thing, the most life-affirming thing you can do. It's not for no reason that Zorba the Greek was a dancer. Lots of people, including me, refer to it as a form of worship, because you're surrendering to the life force. I grew up in the 50s and 60s as a working-class Irish kid on the west side of Chicago and then southwest suburbs. And it was a pretty sterile environment. Irish Catholic culture at that time was pretty sterile, non-touch. And I would, starting in 7th grade, I would dance in my bedroom. I'd like to say that my life was saved by black-infused early rock and roll in my bedroom in Brookfield, Illinois. I did a lot of it. And then in my fraternity in college, we danced. Our fraternity had big dance parties, and boy, the basement of the Teak House at Loyola in Chicago was a good place to dance. But pretty traditional. We were doing the dances we saw on American Bandstand, and mostly we weren't watching Soul Train because we were mostly white. In grad school, Rochester, New York, was rated 1 or 2 in the nation for clinical psychology, but for the wrong reasons. It was cutthroat academics, very ambitious. And we survived because we had the only 2 classes of student radicals that I think ever went through that place. And we were locked in battle with the faculty all the time. And we partied. And a couple of faculty would join us, particularly my advisor at DC, D-E-C-I, look him up, and Dave Landy. I haven't looked him up lately, but I bet Landy. He was a social psychology guy who came from out east, and he taught us improvisational dancing. He would just cut loose and not do the mashed potato or the boogaloo. He just did move the way his body wanted to move, and that was very radical and transformative for us. In Cincinnati, Ohio, where I was in the 80s for 3 terrible, terrible years, the worst decade of my life was 3 years in Cincinnati. But in that town, similar dynamic, because it was such a buttoned-down conservative town, the alternative people found each other, and I hung out with a bunch of performance artists and dancers, and we did creative dancing. Gloria Essenwan was the only professional dancer, but one of the guys, we'd go out and dance in bars, and we loved outdoor festivals. One of the guys wore a t-shirt that said, "I'm a professional, don't try this at home." And we walked into a bar one day, and I watched 2 people, a guy lean over to his buddy, and I knew what he said. He was saying, "Watch this." Because we would cut loose and do stuff you didn't see in bars. Yeah. Here in Asheville, I participated for 7 years in the Asheville Movement Collective, freeform ecstatic dances, 5 rhythms, where people would push the margins of their creativity and where there was so much room to move in alternative ways. In 2020, it was the beginning of 2020, right around the time the COVID was starting to spread, the health food store where I had worked for several years but was not working then got shut down ruthlessly. The whole chain, Earth Fare, got bought out by a hedge fund, squeezed the profits out of it, tried to sell it, and when they couldn't sell the chain, they shut it down. Elizabeth Warren, I'm going to find her video because she talks very wisely about all the beloved chains, Red Lobster, etc., that are getting shut down. In that same way, hedge funds come in, and it's all about the money, honey, not about making a good product. So when Earth Fare got shut down, I kind of headed up the employees who were fighting back, and I organized a benefit dance. And for a month, I was making playlists, putting together the best rocking music for that dance. So I was dancing all the time for a month, and I never stopped. I left Asheville for the country. Up in the country, I was dancing in my space all the time and launched a fantasy of opening up a dance hall in Burnsville, North Carolina, where no dancing. There was a brew pub, but no dancing. And I would get accused in Appalachia all the time of being drunk because I was just moving all the time. My body would just be moving. And I also did interplay for a long time, which is all about improvisation and dance. And one of my buddies there gave me a coaching tip once: don't ever stop moving, just keep moving. So if you let your body move, and what I find is that when I drop back, when I give myself a pause, when I break the momentum, my body wants to move. It just starts to move, and very rhythmically, and I surrender to it, and I just know that the energy is moving through me and that everything's getting healed, physically, emotionally, everything. Touch helps. Touch does help a lot. Most Americans suffer from lack of touch, being really touch deprived. And a hug, a good hug. Because in co-counseling, here's the other way I got liberated. I did reevaluation counseling, co-counseling for 25 years. Was a teacher, just really very, very involved in it. And it was all about deep release of trauma. And it would start from touch. The base position was sitting knee to knee, holding hands. But there would be more touch if you needed it, just a full embrace. And touch, being held in somebody's arms, can release yawning and stretching, which is a great form of physical release. Shaking, your body can just start to shake. And there's a video, I'm going to find this one, of a bunny who's just been terrified. And it shows him shaking, shake it off. And then he's okay again. Yeah. We fear looking out of control, and men especially hold our bodies rigid, and Western men, American men for sure. That's why men have such a hard time dancing, because we're used to looking, this is what a man looks like, strong, solid. No, you're a lot stronger if you're moving, flexible. You're less brittle, you break less easy. I'm aware that my hand has been moving, shaking. I find that my new iPhone doesn't show it as much as my old Android did, but maybe it'll show it. But just take that as inspiration that you're supposed to keep moving. And yeah, his damn hand was shaking, but that's all right. That's part of it. Okay.